Today we will have a discussion, and thank you for attending, and I hope more will come. So today's discussion is Tanggara, uh, the flavor of Southeast Asia's Muslims. And the focus of our discussion today is basically we want to look at Southeast Asia, Asia Tenggara, as also a part of how we can talk about Islam, for example, in the context of the Southeast Asian screen culture. So we look at films, we look at television, and how do we understand or make sense of Southeast Asia in the context of its screen culture from films and television. Today, we have three speakers representing two Southeast Asian countries. One is, of course, Indonesia, and the other one is the Philippines. So I would like to invite, let me introduce myself, sorry. My name is Gieti. I'm from the Jakarta Arts Council from the Film Committee, but I also teach at Universitas Indonesia, and I will be your moderator for today. So I would like to invite our speakers to the stage. The first one is Brillante M. Mendoza from the Philippines. Let's give our big round of applause. Thank you. So let me read his biography. Brillante Mendoza is a Philippine director and producer. He is the first Filipino to receive the Best Director Award at Cannes for his film Kinatai in 2009. He is also the only Filipino to receive the this is in French, so pardon my French, Chevalier dans l'Ordre des Arts et Lettres, or in English, Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters in 2014. And his film Mindanao, which we will screen this evening in 2019, received the Henry Barakat Best Artistic Contribution and Best Actress Awards. In 2018, his film Alpha, The Right to Kill, took home the Special Jury Prize in the San Sebastian International Film Festival. And in 2016, his film Marosa was nominated for Cannes, Palme d'Or, and won Best Actress for Jaslyn Jose, the first Filipino to get that award. So let's give another round of applause for Brillante. The second speaker is Ratih Kumala. I would like to invite Ratih Kumala to the stage. Let's give our applause for Ratih. Ratih Kumala is a professional writer based in Jakarta. She published her debut novel in 2004, Tabula Rasa, after it won Jakarta Arts Council Novel Writing Competition in 2003. She has published 7 books, novels, and short story collection. Her novel, Gadis Kretek, has been translated and published in Germany, UK, Egypt, the Philippines, Thailand, and Malaysia. And Gadis Kretek will be released in Netflix in November 2023, so just 1 month from now. And aside from fiction, she also does screenwriting for TV drama, OTT limited series, digital media, advertisement, and films. Once again, let's give our big round of applause for Ratih Kumala. Okay, we have one more speaker actually. Unfortunately, Tito cannot make it because he's sick, but he also has sent us a video of his presentation. So Tito Imanda is an anthropologist and filmmaker. His PhD thesis is about collaborative filmmaking with the Wayang Orang group at the slope of Mount Merapi, exploring new ways of visual storytelling. His master thesis is about the political economy of the Indonesian film industry. His undergrad thesis about Indonesian animators. From 2008 to 2013, he developed and managed a film school at a private university in Jakarta. And in 2017 up to 2021, he served as the Indonesian Film Board, or BPI, as the head of research and development. So, welcome to today's discussion. The structure of the discussion will be, we will start by asking our speakers to say something about the theme, about the topic. We will start from the video from Tito. And then I will give the floor to Brillante and then to Ratih. And then afterward, we will do the Q&A session. So if you have any question, please save them after the presentation from the speakers. And I'll open the floor later on for discussion. Okay, so we will start by looking at the video or watching the video from Tito, who will be explaining about the Southeast Asian screen culture.
Thank you for the organizers. I really feel honored for the invitation and I apologize for not being able to be there in person because I got smallpox infection when I arrived in Jakarta at the end of last week, making me not being able to enjoy this beautiful festival and sit together with such honorably filmmakers such as Brillante Mendoza, Rati Kumala, and academic Giti Tambunan. I will start my presentation. When we talk about Islamic films, especially in Southeast Asian context, we come up with different types of films. Probably we can relate them with socio-cultural condition of that time. At the beginning of their reappearance in the new Indonesian cinema around 2008, many of them care more about Islamic packaging, Islamic look, scenes with Quran chanting in romance story, ones that they can project towards Muslim market. Later on, along with stronger Islamic social movement, we started to get ones that put Islamic discourse more into the plot. Some of them are probably meant to be a dakwah films. Some others focus on using the approach that we can call, hey, Islam is cooler than you. But as far as I remember, I haven't seen movies with a capability to engage the spectators, to question within ourselves or with fellow spectators, what should religions be for us, the Ummah? What do we need from our religion? And what don't we need from them? Not until I came across these two films from Malaysia, Mentega Terbang from 2021 and Maryam Pagi ke Malam 2023. Mentega Terbang, bahasa Melayu translation of butterfly, was an official selection of Jogja Netpark Asian Film Festival 2021 and the closing films of Aceh Film Festival in 2022. It is about the spiritual struggles faced by Aisyah, a teenager facing a death of her cancer-ill mother. The family is open-minded and religious. The film started with them praying together, followed by eating dinner, all in static master shot only, letting us watch from a distance. Several dinner scenes later, we got them with more cover in subjective shots to make us closer and closer, less distance, and we got involved in their discussion about their daily life activities, connection with neighbors and friends, and mostly Aisyah exploration about different religious teachings, guided firsthand by her father. In daily life, during the day, in the company of her Indian Malaysian classmates, she explores Bibles, Veda, she's going to churches, temples, and she's eating pork, trying to eat pork. At night, we go back to the discussion about how different religions perceive death, and we realize that she's looking for the most suited explanation of death to prolong her mother's existence in the world. Meanwhile, Maryam Pagi ke Malam is about Maryam, a 50-year-old gallery owner woman who seeks family and social blessing to marry her 22 years old boyfriend from Sierra Leone, Africa. The film follows her from the morning in her modern apartment and gallery before noon to an aristocratic house to meet her father, to the office of the lawyer who asked her to go to the next stop, the Great Mosque, to get an imam approval. Oh, so we can enjoy the set, the different architectural set in Malaysia. And after that, to a cafe in the city garden where she meets her best friends. The meetings with her father, her friends, and the imam all ended up in a fierce debate, and everyone questioned her choice and her ability to choose a spouse in the name of the norms, social acceptance, and Sharia bureaucracy. In confusion, in the early night, she visits a sports center where she can watch young men playing football, and later that night, she ended up alone, crying inside her car on the street. And we got to her apartment again, and in the following morning, we started to face a similar ritual as if everything would be repeated again. Both films were not intended to be played in Malaysia because of the strict censorship policies. Mentega Terbang ended up in few online streaming service and soon created a controversy in Malaysia. The Minister of Religious Affairs, Datuk Muhammad Naim Mukhtar, has also given his feedback regarding the film, saying that the content of the film goes against Islamic teachings. It was pulled out from view in March 2023 since the filmmakers and actors got abuse and death threats. The formal ban on the film came in September 2023. Meanwhile, Mariam Pagi Ke Malam is not yet released and the Malaysian government already banned the movie. Another movie in similar regards I look forward to from Malaysia is Tiger Stripes. Yeah. Here, I wonder what if these films are made in Indonesia. Sure, we have more open censorship boards now. If the films becomes a controversy, we also have more balance in conservative as well in progressive parts of society that will put the debate of the film contents in the more healthy doses. So why does Indonesia not have serious, thought-provoking films subject to controversy related to religion? Well, yeah, Indonesia has Ave Mariam in 2018, a story of an affair between a young priest and a nun with a dialogue about God and Catholicism, but choice of Catholicism is probably one of the reasons the controversy will not get very, very, very big in Indonesian context. One of the things that Indonesia has that Malaysia does not have is market censorship. In Indonesian films are made to in Indonesia, films are made to be screened in commercial film theaters. And these film theaters have a say on how many days a film can stay on screen. There are many questions in this with this logic, and the controversies are good for marketing. Whatever brings the audience can be good. However, Indonesian filmmakers probably are not ready to put very serious and thought-provoking films yet, because as much as it is not a guarantee that a controversy will happen, it's more like a guarantee that the films cannot attract enough spectators. So besides thinking that local social political are important in creating specific kinds of films, we also need to look into market control. This is from me for now. And again, thank you very much. Hopefully it can provoke a discussion between us. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's give our applause for Tito and hope he feels better soon. Okay, so Tito talks a lot about how in the context of Southeast Asia, particularly on Islamic films, Indonesian films have actually, he talks more about Malaysian films and how some Malaysian films that actually has the thought-provoking ideas about Islam has been banned and was not able to be screened even in Malaysia. And he was raising the question, how about Indonesia? Because besides there's ideas of censorship, there's also market censorship in which film producers, filmmakers often have to think about whether their films will have a lot of audience or not, and that in itself becomes a different kind of challenge for Indonesian filmmakers to make, for example, thought-provoking films. For example, those who are concerning Islam. So now let's move on to the Philippines, and I will give the floor to Brillante to explain to us about your own creative process in the making of the film that we're going to be screening later, Mindanao, and how do you think we can talk about the film, the screen culture in the Philippines in the context of Southeast Asia?
Well, first of all, I'd like to share with you some of the films, Muslim films, that I did. I think I have. Just to give you a context of the kind of audience and the kind of cinema that we have in the Philippines. So basically, in the Philippines, it's we pattern our cinema in Hollywood because we were also under the American regime, and so basically everything in the Philippines, including arts and including culture, is so Americanized. So And we are also under the Spanish regime for almost 300 years. That's why we were colonized and we became a Catholic country. Okay, so generally in the Philippines, we are about 90% Catholic, and the rest of the 10%, I mean, or less than that, are different religion, including the Muslim from the south. So basically, in the Philippines, the south of the Philippines are that's where it comprises a few percentage of the population. Okay. Now, coming from the north and coming from coming from the north with a totally different background and culture, I make films about Muslim. So, and in the Philippines, when you make a film about Muslim, it's already kind of a taboo in a way because they cannot relate, they don't understand the culture, they don't know the process and everything. So, and it was not easy for any investor, producers, and filmmakers to make a film about Muslim. In fact, I was even criticized a lot. Why make film about Muslim when it's not even my culture? When I don't even know about about the lives of. But I think that's too judgmental because any filmmaker can make a film of their choice, regardless of their background and their culture and their upbringing. I chose these types of films. I think I did about 5 of them, and one was in competition. Captive is about this group of people who kidnap the foreigners. It competed in Berlin, and I also have another one, Thy Womb. It's about an infertile midwife who find a wife for her husband in order to bear a child. Okay, so that film also competed in Venice Film Festival. And then my most recent, it's, well, not most recent because I have Mindanao, and Mindanao is about a wife with a husband who was a soldier. So you see this ironies of Muslim and Christian that I'm trying to inject also in my film. And my latest film, it's called Moro. It had its world premiere 3 days ago in Busan, and we had a very good reception, very interesting Q&A because the audience, the Korean audience, are very curious. They were very curious, and it was a very controversial story because it's about the conflict in the South. And as you all know, there is this ongoing in the South between the Christian and the Muslim for the longest time. And it's something that to this day hasn't been resolved. So having told you that context of where I'm coming from and the kind of films that I make from the Philippines, so you must, maybe you have an idea of how hard, not only for me as a filmmaker, but also for the film itself, to have a commercial screening, whether theatrically or on television or anywhere else in the Philippines. Going back to the idea of why I make these types of films, why Muslim? Why not just concentrate, on the source in the from the city to where I came from, to where I study and all that. Because generally, I've always chosen these types of stories of people who are marginalized, especially in our country, where their voices are not heard. They're Muslim Filipinos whose culture we all do not know. And because of the conflict in the South, it's a beautiful, region, island, one of the most beautiful. But even Filipinos themselves, they cannot see, they cannot go. So, but when I was there and I filmed there, it's one thing that really made me proud as a Filipino, seeing the beauty of this place, of this island. And unfortunately, it's something that we cannot share to the world. It's a beautiful, and it has its beautiful people. I remember the first time I showed my film in one of the schools there, I have some security with me, because of because for security reason and all, and the students and the students, they when they watch my films, and they were so overwhelmed, and it felt good, but at the same time, seeing their appreciation and seeing how they see the films that are done, from the north, and then bringing them, in their school, and are overwhelmed with the story, with the actors, because actors are. But that's also one thing about the Filipino films. They love seeing, the actors. This is also the reason why in in three of the five Muslim films that I did, I use famous Filipino actors, because that's also done one way of attracting Filipinos audience to watch the film, because they have professional actor in it. I mean, of course, it's not the right way to attract the audience, but sometimes it's the only way to do it, because these actors are so famous. I mean, the fans would just, they just want to watch their idol, and then by doing so, and seeing their idol, playing this type of character, it somehow also enlighten them. It somehow also give them an education of who these people are, and understanding them and knowing them, even if their intention is not that. Okay. And I also, even in the south of the Philippines, where most of the where most of the population are Muslim, um, there also this tribe that even from there are considered, second-rate citizen. And this is the one of the films that I did. One of the films that I did in the South. Also, to bring out their stories, why they are being treated that way in their own land, why a second-rate citizen in their own land, considering the situation that they have in Mindanao, or in that part of the Philippines. So you must, with the situation that we have, and the kind of films that I keep on bringing, and showing to the, not only to the Filipino audience, because my films, they go around the world, they win awards, but and yet the sad reality is that, when you go back home, even in your own country, these films are not well received in a way, because the films and the stories that I present to the general audience are in a way are not relatable. But it is important, it is important for the audience, for this Filipino audience, to know and understand that, regardless of their religion and their culture, we are one nation, So, and but to this day, I still do these types of film. Like what I said, like 3 days ago, I had my film in Busan, and it will go to other Asian countries as well, and it will tour different festival until next year. So it's very challenging on my part, but as an artist, I think this is what keeps us, the strength, and what gives us the inspiration, yeah, to do this kind of stories, to share this kind of stories. it has always been a very challenging journey. It wasn't really a simple one. It was a very difficult journey as a filmmaker. But as a storyteller, it's also one of the most fulfilling thing, a moment to any artist to express your art, to express your story, to share your stories, no matter how difficult, no matter how challenging they are, um, to the general audience.
Thank you so much. That's such an inspiring story about how, as a filmmaker, as an artist, instead of choosing the easy road, instead of choosing the commercial way of selling films, you choose to talk about something, and you have a strong belief that Filipinos need to know about the stories from the South. Okay, so I'll move on now to Rati, who is also just did screen adaptation from your novel Gadis Kretek to a web series from Netflix, which will be released in Netflix. So maybe you can tell us about your creative process and the challenge, just like Brillante, how to make film that speaks to the Filipino audience, but also to the global audience, because the film is being shown in Busan and other countries. And in your case, because it's released in Netflix, it will be watched by people from all over the world. And your story is historically specific. The locality is Indonesia. And so maybe you can tell us about your creative process, please.
Thank you everyone for coming. Actually, Gadis Kretek or maybe Brillante is a little bit, he doesn't know that Gadis Kretek is Cigarette Girl, which also being premiere in Busan. I keep saying Gadis Kretek in Bahasa Indonesia. I forgot that he doesn't. I'm sorry, I forgot that you don't know Bahasa Indonesia. First I would like to talk about, before I talk about the process of Gadis Kretek being adapted into serial, I'll talk about. I want to talk about the what Brillante and Tito has just mentioned earlier about the commercial and also the festival film. Like we as a filmmaker, we always we always parted these two kind of movies. The one is for commercial and the other one is for festival. And funny enough, because Indonesia has Islamic has Islam as the majority of our religion here, the one that represent our country in international film industry is not Islamic movie. Yeah. That's funny enough because maybe there's this some kind of I think there's this some kind of realization from the filmmaker that Indonesia is not just Islamic. We are more talk about like female oppression, something like that, like from Uni or Nana, and also seperti Dendam a few years ago, and the one that takes Islamic as the main theme is actually very well performed in Indonesian, yeah, for commercial. Such as lately we maybe you guys have watched Air Mata di Ujung Sajadah, which surprisingly it comes very silently, and then now only in Indonesia it almost 3 million, and I think, and it's directed by my friend Kay Mangunsong. Other than that, actually, that's not just that. We still have like trust me, we still have many to come of Indonesian Islamic stories, because we know that it's sell in Indonesia, and it actually started years ago. Maybe if you guys remember the movie Ayat Ayat Cinta, which also adapted from from a novel, and it also sell really well in Indonesia. So Islamic in Indonesia in film industry, it becomes a commercial film. But for to bring Indonesia, to put Indonesia on the map of uh, the film industry in the world, it's not. Okay. Uh, Now I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the process of me involving Gadis Kretek as the being adapted in on screen. So actually, it started years ago. Me and Mas Isfansyah, the director, we were discussing of how we want to adaptate it into a movie. That was years ago, like over 10 years ago. But you know, we then realized that because the universe of the cigarette girl itself is wide, so we cannot adapt the whole thing from the book. But of course, every time I try to adapt it into a screen, to write it into a scenario, my heart is torn because I was the one who wrote the novel, but at the same time now I have to puzzling it again into a movie. And we didn't touch the script for years and years until there's this thing called OTT, and we start to know what OTT is, uh, which give us more space to develop the story, which give us more time to develop the story. Because if we only limit it in 2 hours of the screening time, it won't be enough. So uh, when Netflix approached me and wants to adapt it into a series, I thought, why a series? Like first time, why a series? Because in Indonesia we have this culture of sinetron, and sinetron is non-soap operas. It's known as like hundreds episodes, and honestly, I've been in that industry for years as well, so I know how the industry works. But then after I think about it again, maybe a series will be the perfect medium to 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 adapt this movie. Although I have to tell you, not everything from the book is included to the to the series itself. We have to pick and choose because we have limited time, limited budget, and limited human resources. Of course, I'm sure that Brilante also understand about all these limited. And lucky enough, I get involved with on the writing process, and my producer and my directors kind enough to involve me in almost every aspect of the process uh, that uh, that they run. Not as not as the supervisor of everything. It doesn't work like that. But me being there to be there for my kid. So I'm glad that they allow me, and I hope that uh, and I hope that this is going to be actually this is although Netflix has another series that uh, already on the screen on Netflix, but actually the Cigarette Girl is the first original Netflix from Indonesia, but it takes time to make it to finish it, and even until today, uh, we still on the process of editing and everything. And we hope that by the 2nd of November, everything will be ready for the audience. It's kind of difficult because when I wrote the when I wrote the novel, I don't get I don't I, I don't I didn't think that it's going to be for international audience. Like, uh, I only think that I'm writing about Indonesia, but now since it's going to be in international media, international OTT, that's the most challenging thing, that I have to switch my mind, or I have to change my hat. Like, if I write a novel, then I'm wearing a hat as a novelist, and then if I write a script, I have to wear a hat as a script writer. And now for the additional challenge, that I have to think about it for international audience, because of everything that happened on the book. Now I have to adapt it and how to explain it into the world, because not everyone knows what happened in Indonesia in the 60s. What's the historical part of Indonesia, and how women were treated back then. Everything has to be explained on the script. So that's one challenging thing. But luckily enough that my directors, actually the directors are couple, Mas Iva Isvansha and Camila Andini. They both are husband and wife, and they both are complete each other, because from Camila Andini, he can give a woman perspective, and from Iva, he can give a man perspective, since the character also, there's the male and female. I think that's all for now.
Thank you so much, Rati. So, yeah. Before I give the floor to the audience, one very interesting similarity from Brillante and Rati is both of you are doing creative works that eventually will be consumed by a global audience. But like Rati say, originally you didn't have any intention that this will be, for a global consumption. Even for you, your first intention is for Filipino to know the stories from the South that they haven't heard before. And if we talk about Southeast Asian screen culture, films and television in Southeast Asia, I was just wondering how the two of you will think about your own creative process in comparison to, for example, other filmmakers, other novel adaptation, which will go to Netflix, because you say this is the first original Netflix from Indonesia. So if we look at Southeast Asian filmmaker or film adaptation maker, series adaptation maker, in comparison to from the States, from Europe, how do we see Southeast Asia? Or are we still looking at, for example, Filipino or Indonesia, or can we see it more as, this is what we can contribute to the Southeast Asian screen culture scene? And how do you see yourself as a creative person in that map? I hope I'm not making you confused, but because as filmmakers, you first make films for yourself, right? For the audience that you have intention to. But once it's out there, it becomes a global consumption. It becomes a representation of a Southeast Asian country. So I was just wondering, maybe you can share a little bit about how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think we still have especially Indonesia, we still have a long way to go to be in that map, because although South Korea is not part of Southeast Asia, but we have to give credit to them, because the Korean wave, at least they have opened the eyes of the international world that there's this thing called Asia. And I'm sorry because I have to mention Korea here. But for us to be in that position, it's hard. It's very hard. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort, and I feel like we must pick and choose the right team for uh, to represent us as Southeast Asia. And it's not easy because out there in the jungle where America and Europe exist, uh, sometimes people are still asking, where's Indonesia? Which part of Bali or which part of Indonesia is in Bali? Something like that. Or do you guys still live in the jungle? Something like that. The very basic question that actually for us is ridiculous because come and see our country. We have this technology, but you know, uh, we must pick and choose the right team that will interest that will bring the interest from the international world to us. Uh, I think that's my answer.
Thank you, Rati. Yeah.
Well, actually, speaking of OTT, I did a TV series before the pandemic, and during one of the most controversial administration in my country in 2016. It's about drugs, and that is supposed to be for free TV. But I approached Netflix and showed two of the episode that I did, and they easily liked it. And it was one of the first Filipino film that was shown. Well, it was the first Filipino film that was shown in Netflix as a series, and it's not even meant for Netflix. It's meant for free TV, And but because of the subject matter, uh, they like they like the series. Now, regarding the idea of showing Southeast Asian films and or Filipino films or Indonesian films to the rest of the world, I think the thing is with us, like what you said, there's really a long way to go, not only for Indonesian films, but also to Southeast Asian films in general, because abroad they couldn't even identify what is Asia to Southeast Asia to Eastern Asia and all that. For them, it's like when you're Asian, it's just Asian. But that in itself is very, very challenging. But I think with the with the films that are being submitted to different festivals, with the films that are being shown in different platform, like streaming platform, it's not easy. But I think we're slowly getting there. We're being slowly being introduced to the global world, global film industry, and little by little they learn to the people are somehow learning something a bit of our stories about our culture and all that. And I think eventually, slowly, we're gonna get there. Like even Southeast Asia, for the longest time, we were not well represented. I think even in festivals. I mean, the only films that are represented in film festival are, of course, China, Japan, and Korea. And to this day, I think to this day, it's only those three countries who are very prominent in major festivals. But slowly, because of the filmmakers from this region in Southeast Asia, you know, like we have the Palma d'Or, Southeast Asian filmmaker who won the Palma d'Or from Thailand. So I think yeah, I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign for us, and I think we just have to be patient. I think with the OTT platform, there is more opportunity for us for our stories and for creators and filmmakers to share their stories not only in their own specific country but to the rest of the world.
Thank you so much. So I'll give the floor now to the audience. If you have any questions, you can stand up and I'll give you the microphone. Anybody? Yeah, please. Oh, okay. Can you please tell us your name and who are you addressing the question to?
Hi, thank you. I'm Putra from Jakarta Cinema Club. Appreciate your time, Brillante and Bharati. Um, you know, through time, we use film as a medium of showing our expression. Like, for example, criticizing on subject matters. We could criticize the politics. We could criticize the idealism of philosophy. But religion is a different cake. In Indonesia, for example, especially Islam, is a very different cake because as an artist, there is a boundaries. There's a big obstacle to criticize this subject, right? When you talk about other religions, for example, in the Hollywood, in one year we can find like maybe more than 2 or 3 films that could make fun of the religion or questioning the idea of the religion itself. But here it's different. That's why Tito earlier mentioned the image of Islam that is shown in the commercial image of the films here is totally different. I don't think it's really. I don't think it's not really thought provoking. That's why we have the Madani Film Festival here. It's really good. I want to ask Briante and Bharati, of course, to see this subject. How do you see as an artist? How do you see this phenomenon? Like, is there any way to escape this, or for example, um, um, what could you do to criticize the idea itself, or do you think the subject that is uncriticizable is the religion itself, or the country itself, or the economy actually made this situation? Just want to know your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. So who? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think religion is one of the most difficult, subject matter. Okay, to critique, not only from your point of view, but even in Christianity, there has been a lot of very controversial films. But again, these films are being made, and even in our country, there's censorship. But we are lucky that censorship in the Philippines is not as hard in other parts of the world. But they still they still can make films and critique about some idealism and all. I remember the time when one of the filmmakers we have in the Philippines, Lino Broca, during the martial law era, some of the films they have to take out, they have to smuggle out of the country so that they can show it. So I think it's not only in this part of the world, but also in the Philippines, because other than the religion, there are other issues that cannot be touched, or even if you touch them, it's going to be very, dangerous for some filmmakers. And but I always believe that there's always a way of telling a story and critiquing a subject matter without being too, to have a like a negative reaction on that phenomenon or on that issue. There's always a way of showing it or doing it. And if you are really, dead set and really want to, want to say something about that issue, I think you can always find a way. Like my most recent film, even before it was shown, just the use of the word moro, I was already warned against it. By a lot of people from the south and but if I keep on thinking about that warning, about the things that I need to do, I don't need to put, I need to avoid, I cannot make my film. So I'll deal with it, baby. I'll deal with it when something happened. But so far to this day, Like not only these types of film, but other films that I did that are, that says something against the government. For instance, in the Philippines, when people they watch my films abroad and then they ask me, so what does the government is doing? I mean, I mean, did you receive any threat or So yeah, there were some threats, but I just have I just have to show my film because I don't want to think about this. I don't want to think about this, threats and issues.
Thank you. Rati?
Yeah, actually, religion is a very sensitive subject in Indonesia, especially. But at the same time, it is also a huge potential market for Indonesia, not only on movie but also in other departments. And I agree with Brillante that there's always a way to tell a story, whatever story that we want. There's this one time in Indonesia that we keep talking about polygamy, which is very closely related to Islamic. And I remember that many of Indonesian filmmakers trying to make their own version of polygamy theme, and that's okay, I think. But you have to be really really careful on how you tell the story about religion in Indonesia. And I also wonder why there's only like all I can remember is just one other than Islamic movies, which is Ave Maria, which
Christian movie.
yeah, which earlier Tito mentioned it earlier, and it's also basically that movie is also controversial.
Yeah, it is.
But imagine if it is you take the same story and put it in Islamic background, like in a pesantren or something. Of course, the story will be different. Of course, the way people react will be different. So I don't blame the filmmaker if they also want to find a safe way to tell their stories. But maybe us as a audience, we can also think furthermore from the story itself. I think that's it.
Thank you so much. So basically, it's about strategizing as a filmmaker, as a novel writer, as somebody from the arts, because that's a very good question at the end when you ask, is it the religion or is it the country or is it the people? Because then we need to think about religion. What do we say about religion? Is it the belief or is it the institutionalized religion or is it the socially constructed religion? So it's a very complicated discussion, but thank you for bringing up this issue. So I'll give the floor to the audience. I've just been informed from the committee, if you ask a question, you'll get a gift from the committee. Yang bertanya dapat hadiah dari panitia, dapat hadiah buku, ya kan? Kalau mau bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia silahkan, nanti saya akan bantu terjemahkan. If you want to ask in Indonesian, I'll be happy to help with the translation. Are there any other questions? Not yet? Okay, maybe I'll ask some more questions. Maybe it will trigger more questions from the audience. So if we go back to the movies or the TV series or the novels that you produce, especially for Brillante, for example, I was really intrigued when you say you made these films to inform the majority of the Filipinos, and then you specifically choose the topic of the so-called minority. And Barati, you also in a way talk about women, which is in a way is a minority. So the issue with that sometimes in filmmaking or in TV series or novel, when we are portraying a certain group that is already oppressed in a way, then there's things that we need to be careful in representing them, because you say their voice has been silenced and you want to make sure your platform will provide, you will give them the voice, but you want to make sure that it's also safe for them. So maybe you can share in your own creative process, how do you deal with that, when you're trying to talk about minorities?
First of all, my creative consultant is from the South, and my writer is also from the South. So both of them are from the South. But other than that, one of the creative process that we have, that only with these types of films that I make, but with these types of stories, to the process of doing an extensive research. So we talk to the people, we go there, we make sure that, we're doing it the right way, and we also have a lot of consultant, from the academe, and because it's important, even the clothes, even everything, their ways, and a lot of times we also have consultant on the set, because not everything is being shot in the south. So sometimes we cheat the locations and we shoot it in the north, but the story is from the south. But when we develop the story, normally we go there, and we are very much aware of that, and how we treat the sensitive issues and sensitive matters, because at the end of the day, but the most important thing is that, of course, when you make films about this minority, you want them to be represented. The mere intention of doing that in itself is already, in their favor, in a way. Yeah, and you don't want to cause even more or further, conflict in doing that. So, yeah, so that's basically the process that I.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think doing research is a very important part, and I'm sure that Brillante has done so many research to do that, because the research is not only to make the material becomes more stronger, but also to avoid all the everything that's not necessary for the creative project. And when I first published Gadis Kretek, actually many people contact me because they disagree with women smoking in Indonesia. But the funny thing is, I didn't even smoke. It's like Brillante making film about Islam, and you're from the other religion, so it's like that. But you have to know what you want to say, and I agree that you don't have to be in that part of community in order to represent that community. But the most important thing is what you believe that is right for that community itself. But it's true that we also have to place ourselves in the middle, so we know how to deliver the message, but also we also safe in our own position.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah. You mentioned research. You did a 4-year research for your novel, right? Or
Yeah.
more than that.
So actually 4 years is the whole time I'm writing the books, and I did the research on and off, depend on whether I have the time and money, because it's not cheap at that time. But yeah, during the writing process, I also do the research, and I feel like the research itself helps me a lot, from a very teeny tiny idea, want to write about cigarette in Indonesia. Now I know the whole industry and how it affect everything around it.
Yeah.
And funny enough, although I face with so many people who smokes around me, I still don't have desire to smoke, something
Yeah.
like that. But I think it's interesting to know because for me in Indonesia, this disclaimer, this is not a promotion of kretek, of smoking, because everyone is smoking. This is a very simple thing that you put on your hand, in your mouth every single day. We see it in the street. But is there any stories that really represent that? Little did we know that's also part of our long culture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, in relation to when you say we need to do our research, we need to make sure that we're telling the story in accordance to the story of the people that we're representing. Right. It's not just about being or no, just telling a story without, like you say, you invite a consultant from that area. In your case, you did a thorough research on the issue, and just to make sure that the narrative that we're telling is their story. It's not just something that we, from the perspective of an outsider, right? We need to tell their stories, okay? So, are there any questions from the audience? Yes, we have 2 questions. So maybe we can take the 2 questions and then we'll answer them.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. Maybe my question will be to Mr. Brillante Mendoza. So we know that in Philippines, in the martial law era, there is a lot of great film that use the religious metaphor, like Himala by Ismail Bernal and Cain and Abel by Lino Broca, and that metaphor really makes a great critique to the authoritarian regime back then. And I know that currently in Philippines, Bongbong Marcos has risen as a new president, and he in his body also brings that hypothetically past glory. And maybe I want to ask, and now you are immersing yourself in Islamic culture in Philippines. Maybe I want to ask, what is your stance on filmmaking in the rise of this hypothetical military rise? Maybe in Philippines and maybe also in Southeast Asia, as we are in the middle of Myanmar and maybe Indonesian election next year.
Can you
Thank
tell
you.
me your name? Tell us your name.
Oh, my name is Lutfan from
Lutfan.
Forum Lenteng.
Okay, thank you, Lutfan.
Yeah, those 2 films that you mentioned are, they're 2 of the greatest Filipino films that were made, and they were made during the most difficult times in the Philippines. So I believe, and this is actually an inspiration for everyone, for all the artists, that in these times where in the most difficult times, the artists will always find a way to tell their stories, no matter how difficult it is. They were able to create this great films in the most difficult time, and now that how many years? It's like 25 years, almost 20. No, they are now back in power. But times has changed. Times have changed because now we have a different, so many platforms to tell our stories. I mean, we still have censorship in the Philippines, not as bad as before. We still have censorship. We call it the ratings board, but it's a censorship. But but I think I think even if the people who are supposed to be in power now are in the government, it shouldn't stop the artists from expressing, themselves, their views. And I always believe that as an artist, personally, I can always find a way, to critique a specific philosophy or a specific administration. It was very ironic because in 2016 I was associated with the with the with the with the president of the Philippines. It was very controversial all over the world, and yet I am making films about, you know, about police corruption, about drugs and all. And it was like what I've said, even praised one of my films. So, you know, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it, you know, because you don't actually criticizing the personality, that person, but the institution itself. So when you criticize the institution, I think they're being part of that institution, but you are not specifically telling them that they are the one. And you can somehow tell your stories, but in a very smart and intelligent way.
Thank you so much. So we have one more question at the back.
Saya Ovi. Saya bertanya dengan bahasa Indonesia.
Ya.
Yang pertama, Mabuhay Brillante. Mungkin yang pertama pertanyaannya terkait tentang festival film di Filipina sendiri. Kalau di Indonesia kita tahu penghargaan tertinggi itu ada di Festival Film Indonesia. Amerika kita punya Academy Award atau Piala Oscar. Di Filipina seperti apa dan penjurian atau jenis-jenis film itu karakternya seperti apa biasanya? Karena pasti akan berbeda. Oke, yang kedua untuk Mbak Ratih, ini kemarin ketika rilis trailer dari Gadis Kretek ini viral di mana-mana. Pembaca semuanya pada heboh juga. Bahkan banyak pertanyaan akhirnya muncul. Ini berbeda ya dengan novel yang Mbak Ratih tulis. Tadi Mbak Ratih mungkin sempat menyebutkan jika banyak ada explore karena ini menjadi series atau seperti apa? Mungkin boleh dikasih bocoran sedikit. Terima kasih.
Okay, so the first question is for you about film festivals in the Philippines. Because here in Indonesia, if a film is being shown in a film festival, it is become a renowned film. So she was asking about what about the judging? What's the mechanism in the film festivals in the Philippines, and also what kind of the characters of the types of films that are being shown in film festivals in the Philippines. Yeah.
Fortunately, the independent cinema of industry in the Philippines is thriving because there are a lot of funding, a lot of funds that are being provided to the filmmakers. It's not really a lot, and we have also two film festivals in the Philippines, the Cinemalaya and the Quezon City. We have the International Film Festival, which is the Quezon City Film Festival. So because of this festival and because they provided funds and money for the filmmakers to create their films, it has already become an opportunity for them and a venue for them to showcase their films. And the nice thing is these festivals, they are pro artist. You know, they support the artist. It's not well, you know that it's very hard and expensive to make a film. But I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about the Filipino filmmakers, the Filipino artists, that they always find a way to make their films. Like I experienced the same thing. I would beg, steal, and borrow, you know, abuse your friends, exploit them to the fullest over and over again. But you have to find a way of, you know, and that's what they do. That's very, you know, and in a way, they were able to, you know, make their films, and they were, you know, despite even the small films that we sent, for instance, to the Academy, the one that was chosen is a small film, but it's a very, I think it's a very original. It has a very original craftsmanship and aesthetics because it has it is a live animation. So, and you know that it's a small film, but coming from the Philippines and films from Southeast Asia, and I think that's the way to go about it. We don't have to be Hollywood, you know, and to have like big budget project. But I think the essence and the importance and the significance of the films, as far as our stories, as far as culture, and as far as our people is concerned, I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's what will make it, an impact to the global film community. If we show our stories, we cannot copy their stories. We cannot copy Korean stories. Korean films. I know they're very prominent. But Korea is Korea. Indonesia is Indonesia. Philippines is Philippines. No matter how difficult it is, we have our own way of sharing and telling others. And and I believe that it's a very difficult journey, but I believe at one point, this film will be recognized, and our people will be recognized as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yes, Rati?
Aku coba jawab pakai bahasa Indonesia ya.
Ya.
Pertama-tama kita harus menghormati industrinya itu sendiri. Karena ada dua industri yang berbeda. Setidaknya yang aku jalani. Pertama industri buku, yang kedua adalah industri film. Dan itu adalah dua hal yang sangat berbeda, cara kerjanya juga sangat berbeda, orang-orangnya sangat berbeda, siapa yang terlibat tuh sangat berbeda. Kalau yang namanya buku itu kan sebetulnya adalah karya pribadi yang sebetulnya mungkin keterlibatannya itu hanya maksimal tuh 2 orang, penulisnya itu sendiri sama editor di penerbit gitu ya. Sedangkan kalau film itu berbeda. Film itu kerja komunal. Dan saya cukup beruntung berada di 2 industri ini. Saya selalu berada di irisannya. Jadi agak-agak aneh memang posisiku itu. Orang-orang kadang-kadang gak paham, kok kamu bisa sih nulis novel juga, nulis skenario juga. Padahal saya sendiri yang menjalani sebetulnya itu tidak gampang. Tapi karena saya berada di 2 industri yang berbeda, kaki saya ada di dua industri ini, jadi saya paham. Gadis Kretek ketika dia sudah diadaptasi, itu posisinya, universe-nya sudah berkembang. Kita harus menyadari itu. Dan ada banyak hal yang tadinya hanya berupa tulisan dan itu harus divisualisasikan. Dan saya sebagai the filmmaker, saya harus membuat itu untuk audiens yang berbeda meskipun tidak menutup kemungkinan bahwa audiens itu adalah termasuk yang membaca novelnya itu. Tetapi saya harus punya pandangan bahwa audiensnya ini berbeda gitu. Dan itu PR yang lumayan, PR yang lumayan buat aku gitu. Jadi kalau dibilang apakah ada perbedaan, tentu saja ada perbedaan. Nggak usah punya saya. Gak usah Gadis Kretek gitu ya. Lihat aja film-film yang lain, adaptasi lainnya. Bahkan kayak Harry Potter aja gitu, itu ada beberapa hal juga yang berbeda. Ada banyak hal yang dipotong, ada banyak hal yang ditambahkan di situ karena untuk kepentingan visual. Karena memang audiensnya itu berbeda gitu. Dan saya cukup beruntung karena saya paham dua-duanya. Kadang-kadang kadang ada penulis novel yang dia benar-benar menyerahkan 100% kepada filmmaker atau penulis skenario. Jadinya dia mungkin kaget kok jadinya gini gitu. Tapi itu karena mereka tidak punya kemampuan untuk menulis skenario sendiri. Saya cukup beruntung karena saya punya kemampuan menulis sendiri dan memang sejak awal saya sudah menegaskan bahwa saya harus terlibat di proses penulisannya dan memang itulah yang terjadi gitu. Seperti itu sih.
Thank you so much. So basically screen adaptation, there will always be something different from the novel to the screen, right? Okay. So thank you so much for Rati and Brillante let's give a big round of applause. We don't have time anymore, so if you do have questions, you can directly ask after this. So just to conclude, because as a moderator, I have a job to conclude all of the discussions we had today. So today we have talked about creative strategies, either in filmmaking or in adaptation of novel to TV series, on how to voice the voiceless, on how to tell the untold stories, and also more importantly, how Indonesian and also Filipinos films or TV series could be shown for the global audience. In that case, positioning Southeast Asia's screen culture in the global film and TV industry. So once again, I thank all the audience. Let's give a big round of applause for all of the audience today. And we will have a screening after this, Brillante's movie, Mindanao. So please stay and watch the movie and enjoy the movie after this. So thank you everyone and good evening.